Hello, I recently came across these stairs and they gave me an idea, so let's see how that works out. So first off, we start with a number of edges. That's 4. Then we have a number of cubes per edge. That's 7. Then we compute the total number of cubes, n, and this is the number of edges times the number of cubes. Now we create a 3D assembly, and within it we have a bunch of cubes, so we loop for I starting from 0 all the way up to n, incremented at every step. We create a cube every time. Now we need the number of cube faces. The number of cube faces is 6 for every cube, but here we never see the bottom one, so we just have 5. It's always good to use fewer elements whenever we can. So now that we've done this, replace here number of faces, and the loop index is j in this case, or anything else but I. Now we have cube face here. Now let's actually see them. So let's start CSSing something. Cube face. We set a width equal to that edge length and a height equal to that same edge length, and we set a background just so that we can see stuff, and there they are. Okay, now we make all divs absolutely positioned. So div position absolute, and we also set transform style preserve 3D so that we can have 3D transforms on elements that are children of 3D transformed elements. Okay, now we can collapse this div, and we put the assembly in the middle. So that's top 50% and left 50%. Now the thing is, the top left corner of that is at 50%, 50%, but we want the center. So that's setting a negative margin by half the dimension. And since we're using half the dimension is the in radius of the square. So let's actually use the in radius. So replace this with the in radius because it gives me the same kind of square. And the margin is minus the in radius. And I didn't actually change the value to 1, which is why it doubled in size, because the in radius is half the edge length. Okay, now having done this, let's actually I could have left it like that because it's more visible. Let's get rid of this ugly background, use a box shadow instead for now. 0 offsets, 0 blur, and let's say 2 pixels and inset. This is my box shadow. Now before we see anything in 3D, we need to set a perspective on the scene. The scene is going to be our the body. So let's make it full height. And this creates a scroll bar. To get rid of it, just set margin 0. And now we set a perspective. 20 ems is pretty exaggerated, but we wanted to see that it's clearly 3D. And also set a perspective origin. This is going to be in the middle horizontally and a bit above vertically. So that's 50% minus, let's say, 7 times the in radius. It doesn't really matter. Okay, now let's start with transforms on the face. So transform, and first off we have a rotate 3D. I won't get into details on how this works because I've already explained it in an article, a very detailed article, and there's also a video on this topic, and you'll find the links in the description. So if you want to know, just check that out. So here, the rotate 3D first takes the 3 components of the vector that determines the axis. We rotate the element around, and then there's the rotation angle. So the first component is going to be an I, and this is 0 initially, so I is 0. The second component is going to be a j, but we don't use it outside this context, so we just write it as 1 minus I. And the third component is always 0. And what we're left with now is just the angle, and this angle is going to be a multiplier times 90 degrees. Okay, having done this, this multiplier is 1 by default. Okay, having done this, we now translate along the third axis by the in radius. which is also the in radius of the cube, not just the in radius of the square face. Okay, now let's also position the other faces because we've only positioned one so far. So we have a loop. So for I from 0 to 4. And here we have if I is different from 1. By the way, this is all explained in the article, how this works and why. And okay, and this is nth child I plus 1, and we change the multiplier to the loop index, which we need to interpolate in this case because the multiplier is a CSS custom property. Okay, now for the last child, let's put it on top. And this involves switching I to 1. Okay, now that I've done this, let's position them. But before we do that, we need to set a few things to pass them to the CSS. So first off, we have style, and we're going to have a loop here. So this is the number of edges. So here we have cube, nth child, and here we have n plus I times the number of cubes plus 1, and here we set j to the loop index I. And now we're going to have something similar again. This goes to the number of cubes, and here we take out the number of cubes. Okay, and this is going to be I, not j. Okay, now also we set a few things here in an inline style, such as the number of edges, and the same for the number of cubes and n. So and here it's just n. Okay, now having done this, I can move back to positioning. So I have transform, and first off I have a rotate y, and I'll be using this rotation angle. So that's calc j times 1 turn over the number of edges. So this is my angle, which I use here. Then I have a translation, translate 3D, and along the x-axis we have calc number of cubes times the in radius, and if I use the same value for the z, last axis, the y is going to be 0, at least for now. This puts them in the corner. The thing is, I need to decrease the perspective a bit so that I can actually see them. Okay, even more. Okay, let's make this. It's getting ridiculous. Okay. Now I can see them and they're in the corner. And to put them on the edges, I need to have n cubes minus twice I. Yeah, that. Okay. So this distributes them all around. And now something else that I want is to make a rainbow all around. So let's create a hue here. And here, actually, I'll compute a k, a sort of a progress k. And this is calc I plus it all gets divided by n. Okay, so this is my progress k, and here I have k times 360 okay, and here when I set, oh, this is just a hue, it's not a HSL, sorry about that. So here I have HSL what's wrong? Oh, yeah, that. Okay, so this looks pretty good, but I want to also change a bit, so not all the faces of the cube will have the same background. So the way I do that is applying a filter, a hue rotate filter. So filter, hue rotate, and here I have calc, and I have a factor multiplied with, I don't know, something like this. And here I have calc, which is I, 2 times I, plus a parity, which is 0 by default. And now nth child to n, so if I have even, the parity becomes 1, or the other way around. I don't think it really matters. Okay, so having done this, I can remove this box shadow, and I should have some difference in between the faces. They shouldn't be all the same. As you can see, they're a bit different. Maybe I should increase that difference more. Now it's a lot more obvious now. The difference between two faces of the same cube. Okay. Now something else I want to do is here I want to reverse this rotation. So -1, okay, like this. Now having done this, I can collapse this face right here. Here I'll add an offset, and this offset is initially 0, and I'll also add it right here, so plus offset times 1 degree. Now I want to animate this offset, so before I do that I need to register it. So register property, name, syntax, this is basically the type, so number, initial, this is 0, and inherits. Okay, now that I've done this, keyframes, offset 2, so it goes to 360. Now something else I want to do. Here I want to create an animation duration. This is going to be my first animation duration, and let's say it's going to be 8 seconds, something like that. And here I have animation, offset, that animation duration, linear, infinite, and it should rotate Okay, that's not quite what I had in mind. So I'll need to add it elsewhere. So there. Okay, this works as intended right now. That's good. Let's also add a dark background on the body because it's a lot more visible that way. So dark background. Okay, this is a lot better. Now something else I want to do is add scaling. So scale Y. This is going to be a scale factor, which is 1 initially. And I'll also register it. So scaling factor, everything else is the same for it. And I'll have a second set of keyframes. So oh wait, let's make it 1 by default. This is going to be goes I don't know, up to 4. So now I'll have a second animation duration. Let's say something like this. And now my second animation is the scaling one. Ease in, out, infinite, alternate. Okay, so I don't want them to increase at the same time, so I'll use an animation delay. So calc, and I use my K here and minus twice. So yeah. As you can see, it goes that way, but I don't want them, I want them to increase from the base. So I'll add the in radius here, a translation, and then reverse this translation. So translate Y minus the in radius. And now they should scale from the bottom. Okay. So what this translation is doing is basically shifting the transform origin to the bottom, and this doesn't matter for the rotation around the y-axis or the scaling along the y-axis, oh, actually it doesn't matter for the scaling along the y-axis. That's the one that's affected. And then I just translate the origin back. I'm not sure if I really need it. Oh yeah, I do. It's going to be everything translate down. I'm pretty sure I do need it. Okay. Come on. Why are you doing this? Yeah, I do need it. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, now that I've done this, I can increase this to get 2 waves like this. Okay, and something else I can do here is add a transform, rotate X, minus something like this. Okay, this looks pretty nice. So I don't know, I think I might leave it like that. Let's see how it works with an even smaller duration. Oh, it looks pretty cool actually. So yeah, I'll just leave it like this. I won't make any other changes. This is it for today. This is what I wanted to show you. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want me to be able to do more stuff in the future, please consider supporting my work. Donations are suspended for now, but you can still make this kitty very happy by getting her something off her Amazon wishlist. or you can at least share this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days, because honestly, I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching.